This is the Police Training HQ podcast. We are your headquarters for all things training and resources for Texas law enforcement. And welcome back to the Police Training HQ podcast, your headquarters for training and resources for Texas law enforcement. This is Walt Bauer, and after finishing up a long week in Alpine at the wonderful Sul Ross University Law Enforcement Academy, we have an additional treat this week, episode 6. Episode 6 is going to be sort of a reflection of our training this week. Unfortunately, Mike couldn't make it. I feel a trend. He's leaving me hanging. However, the treat is we have 2 current recruits in the academy, and even bigger treat, an officer that helped us today with training. Officer Jack Steiner has decided to join us with the University Police Department. Hey guys, would you introduce yourself for our listeners?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start it off. My name's Calvin Odom. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, and what led me to law enforcement is I've just always been intrigued since a young age. Every time I saw police doing their job, I just thought it was really cool. And now I'm here.
Yeah, you have some military background too, don't you?
I do.
Did that help, you think?
It helped me reaffirm that I wanted to get into it, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And who's next?
Hello, guys. My name is Marshall Werner. My hometown is Waller, Texas. What led me to law enforcement is my dad's been in it his whole life, and I've been around it my whole life. And what I see him do is really intrigued me to become a police officer.
Yeah, and you and I have kind of a connection, don't we?
Yes, sir.
We know
Yes, sir.
some people
Yes, sir.
from Waller County. Our audience may not know that, but
Yeah.
we don't bore our audience or our listeners a lot with the bio, but I spent a fair bit of my career in Waller County, and
Yes,
so
sir.
some of the names we got to, it was really fun that at the beginning of this you walked up and said, hey, the DA's office from Waller County said hi, and I didn't know to be scared or excited.
Yeah.
I was a little bit of both,
Yes, sir.
to be honest with you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, man.
Yes,
Officer
sir.
Steiner, do you want to
Yeah,
give it a shot?
I'll give a little bit of an introduction to myself. So, hey guys, I'm Officer Steiner. I'm with the Sul Ross University Police Department here in Alpine, Texas. A little bit about me. I'm actually not originally from Texas, so I'm a transplant from all the way up in Ohio, if you can believe that. I've been a cop for about 5 years. About 3 years of those have been with the university police setting, so I'm very comfortable in that setting. There's some other certifications that I have that I'm proud of. I'm a STOPS school instructor, which I'm super proud about that. So for those of you that don't know what STOPS school is, it's strategies and tactics of patrol stops. So basically we teach current officers, academy cadets, how to do traffic stops tactically and how to do it safely. And so I helped out a little bit with that today. And I'm sure the cadets were, at least I hope they enjoyed my teaching for it. But That's one thing that I'm super proud of. Right now, what I'm trying to get started here at Sul Ross is we're trying to get a tactical team started, which is something that I've been interested in doing. It's taking a little bit of time, but hopefully it'll come to fruition. Along with that, I'm currently in charge of getting our new fleet for our police department. That's been a challenge, but we're moving in the right steps, so hopefully it'll come to fruition.
Man, it just sounds like you don't have enough to do. It's lazy.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, your teaching model today, I mean, for what it's worth, that's what we do. I mean, we look at training, we look at teaching methods, and I thought you did an amazing job. Not that matters to you too much, but we just met. But
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool the way that you trained them very specific tactics. It made my job easier today because I was here talking about the nerdy stuff. This week, as y'all know, was if we have any listeners that are students of mine, they'll know that I call this Ass Week, arrest, search, and seizure for you perverts out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of concepts this week, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It sure was.
Yeah,
A lot of stuff thrown
Y'all said
around.
that way too fast. Yeah, way too quickly. But I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll get into that a little bit. So to kind of structure this, I do want to know a little bit about you. Specifically, after the academy, I'm curious, what are your goals? leaving the academy? Do you have an initial role that you might want to be in? And Officer Steiner, if you would, I mean, did this match your goals leaving the academy as well? If y'all wouldn't mind discussing it.
Yeah, I mean, when I get in, I just want to get as much training as I can get and get as many building blocks to be the best officer I can be. I mean, every time we do training, it's just more and more aspects that are part of the job that you learn about, and it just makes you want to acquire more skills so you can handle everything correctly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you don't really have a long term. You're kind of just like, let me pass the state first, Walt, and then we'll.
Yeah, we'll get there.
That's fair. Pragmatic approach. Yeah, Marshall. What do you think?
Well, my main goal is actually game warden, but you know, of course, it's a little bit of the same concept of arresting people and stuff, but it has to deal with a lot with like animals and stuff like that outdoors. But actually, when I graduate the academy, I hope to become a PD officer in Washington County, Brenham, Texas. So,
Nice.
That's what I'm really looking forward to. So.
Oh, amazing, absolutely. And so, Officer Steiner, I mean, I think you and I can both agree that we set a goal and then almost immediately it's either different or changes a little bit.
Yeah, so initially when I got out of the academy, I wanted to do all those cool things that I saw on TV. I wanted to go SWAT, I wanted to be a K-9 officer, wanted to run and gun, which I did for my first couple of years as a rookie. I'll be honest, doing that for 2 years, you get burnt out really quick. And it's a lot of late nights, and I'm sure the listeners know from if they are experienced police officers, it's a lot of late nights, it's a lot of report writing, it's a lot of going to court in the morning. You're running on maybe 2-3 hours of sleep a night, and you're running call to call to call to call. So my first couple of years, again, back up in Ohio, I worked for another university, and this was in Dayton, Ohio. So it's an inner city, big gang problems. We'd get maybe a shooting, not on campus every night, but there'd be shootings around campus. So obviously we would have to go and help local PD with that. And I remember specifically one night, it was 4th of July. It was my second year. And keep in mind, I'm a newbie. I'm green. We responded to countywide 99. So for us in Ohio, that was an officer needs help. So it was for the whole county. I remember going with my partner over to where that scene was, and as we're getting over there, we hear shots fired at the police. So we're like, oh crap, like what is going on? I remember getting there, I remember getting my rifle out of the back of my patrol car, and it was just a chaotic scene. Eventually we got everything kind of settled down, and this was actually the cool part. So we had 2 PD cruisers off to my left side, we had the SWAT Bearcat in the middle, and then it was my partner, and then me on the end on the right side. Basically, we just went and we just cleared the street. That was fun. That was a fun experience.
That's what we sign up for.
Yeah,
Drive
the fun stuff.
Yes, maybe say some naughty words every now.
Yeah,
and again.
every now and then.
Yeah, every now and again. Yeah.
But yeah, no. I think after going through and helping out today, from what I've seen, is I do want to teach people how to do traffic stops the right way.
Yeah.
I want them to be safe. I don't want to see another officer doing, a driver's side approach, doing it the wrong way, and then them end up getting shot and costing us, or making that sacrifice. And I will say this, that we do honor those officers that have made the sacrifice, and I'm not taking anything away from that. It's their sacrifices are how we learn and how we get better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that way, we don't run into the same issues that we keep seeing. And I think, obviously, this is my first time actually kind of like teaching a little bit. I thought I did a good job, and hopefully, people actually got something out of it. That's my main goal, is that I want these cadets and these students to take away at least something that they can use when they're out on patrol, or if they're out driving around, they can stop and think and be like, hey, how do I do this? Like, if I'm doing a passenger side approach, what do I need to do? And it keeps that mental edge and that competitive nature of, hey, I'm going home at the end of the day. So that way, we don't, as officers, we don't get into the mindset of, oh, I get shot, I'm done.
Absolutely. Well, that's what training's for, isn't it? And I don't know what your training was like, especially in Ohio, but I can tell you that starting, we don't try to make comparisons for the purposes of making us look good or bad or whatever, right? But I can tell you that I can tell you that for me, training was not as focused. It was sort of concept-based rather than repetition like you did today. It was the same thing, and every student got the exact same block, exact same instructions. It was so precise. It was so precise. And not only that, but you and I decided we would index the scenario a little bit earlier, and for our listeners, index just means stop. But we stopped it because it's like we decided not to create training scars. And that's to me, is more important in the training environment than anything else. And I thought it was masterfully done. It gave me a chance to go get in the shade, actually. And I don't know if I should admit that or not, but I was like, hey, he's got it. I'm going to go get in the shade and drink some water.
Yeah, well, for those that don't know me, I'm a white boy from Ohio, so being out here in the Texas heat, I'll burn. But hey, if you got some shade, then that's good. That's good.
Well, hey,
so.
we can cook on the other side a little
Right,
bit.
right.
Yeah. Well, so that's great. I really appreciate it. This is a weird scenario. Do y'all mind kind of playing along with this?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
If y'all were in charge for a day, a week, a month, totally, and you got to decide how your training would be from today on, like you get to design the style and the type of training you're going to get for the rest of your career, how would you describe that? That might be tough, but you get to say, hey, this is the type of training I want for the rest.
I really like the hands-on scenarios and the teach-backs. I think it's a really good tool to use so you can make sure you're absorbing the knowledge and you can say it back and make sure everyone understands that you get the concept.
Yeah, and we used that this week. So you I guess as a class leader, Cadet Odom on the mic, by the way, but you may have seen some people be nervous or whatever, but that seemed to melt away this week. There's a lot of methodology we're going to talk about.
Right.
But teachbacks was effective for you?
I think it builds confidence a lot faster too,
Yeah.
which is really good.
It's awesome.
Well, just like Mr. Ohm said, the scenarios were a great learning objective, getting hands-on and actually knowing what you're doing and letting us know what we did wrong really taught us, hey, let's go back and fix that and try it again. And the teachbacks, like he said, it builds confidence, really does, because you know what you're talking about, and you're not afraid to be wrong because, everything that you said, that's the way, I guess, it goes.
Well, yeah, and I know y'all know that I'll say something if not.
Oh, yes,
I
for
have
sure.
no shame,
Yeah.
right? But this week y'all did amazing. I mean, there's a lot of concepts, a lot of hardcore legal study stuff, and I thought you guys did a wonderful job. Do you dare, Officer Steiner, to kind of enter that scenario to say, hey, for the entirety of my career, if I was in charge?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think if I was in charge and what I would want for my training, and I still go to trainings all the time. I'm constantly training. The one training that I like the most is the practical side of things. The way I like it is because it allows me to make a mistake without actually doing it out in the real world. Because obviously, as an experienced officer, if I make a mistake and I go to court, I could go to jail or I could lose my license. That's the end of my career. So I think having the actual practical applications and practical scenarios, it is so much more beneficial than, as from what I've been told, death by PowerPoint. Just by going just PowerPoint. Actually having hands-on experience is 10 times better than just sitting in a classroom looking at PowerPoints. Now, I'm not discrediting PowerPoints. PowerPoints are good for what they are, but actually going out, doing the motions, doing those repetitions, it allows everyone to build confidence and be like, hey, like I can actually do this.
Well, that begs the question, in my opinion. So we hear that a lot, actually, because adults learn by doing. And like I've said a million times on this channel, we're not looking to indict instructors or our profession, especially as an education or a training profession, because training is, for the most part, we sort of look at training like a prophylactic rather than a checkbox. We trained this week for many situations rather than one particular incident, if that makes
Right.
sense. And so, do you think, if you want to, do you think that most adults would agree with you, adult learners in this field?
100%.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
I would think so.
You think it's just because we don't want to sit in a classroom for 40 hours, or do you think
Yeah,
there's
I mean-
something? You think there's something deeper to it?
Kind of like what Officer Steiner was saying. When it's just PowerPoints, death by PowerPoint, it's just like a teacher throwing a book at you and then giving you a test. It's like, did you figure it out? I hope so.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And I'll jump in here a little bit too, especially when I was first starting out. That's kind of how it was.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, all right, hey, like you graduated the academy, you know all this stuff. All right, now go out and do it. And I'm sitting here as a rookie officer. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be the police. I don't know how to be a cop. And it's a scary situation to be in.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, like the first time I was on FTO, I realized I'm like, hey, like I'm not ready for this yet. So obviously I resigned from my first department because I knew that I wasn't ready.
Needed something more.
I needed like some more time, like actually, like let me go and let me learn how to, actually talk to people, not be this robotic, authoritative figure,
Right.
which as police officers, we do have that authoritativeness to us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more, and I've told the cadets this during today when I was helping them, a lot of this job, it's about how you talk to people. It really is. You don't want to be that, and I'll be honest, I'm going to use some vulgar language. You don't want to be that asshole cop.
Right.
You really don't. You're not going to get a lot out of it from being that asshole cop. You want to be the cop that is like, oh, hey, he's not a bad dude.
Yeah.
Like I can actually go and talk to him, and he's going to try to help me out
Yeah,
with.
he's approachable.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I think that comes with confidence. Monday, we started this off, just for your sake too, Officer Steiner. We started off the week saying, yeah, I mean, this is going to be a lot of learning objectives. There's going to be a lot of concepts, but actually, what we're doing this week is learning these for a test, learning these for career enrichment, and then to have confidence when you're making decisions. Like specifically, arrest, search, and seizure this week is a lot about decision making. We ran scenarios. Some of them were silly. Some of them were, you got a little laugh out of it, right? But it's one concept out of many. If you had to point out, not just in this class, we'll get to that, but the most effective part of that, maybe you've experienced so far, would it be that scenario-based stuff? Would it be the teachbacks or something beyond that? So what has been the most effective moment or method so far by which you've been trained?
The most effective method would definitely be scenarios, because you actually put yourself in that scenario. Like you're trying to make yourself feel like this is real world and this has real consequences attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it seems like there's an echo, but I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yes, just like he said, Mr. Odom said, I mean, like you would let us know what we did wrong. And of course, it's a real life scenario that could happen to you in the field, but you were there to correct us if we did something wrong. So when we get out in the field, we don't mess up.
Especially the parts where you're like, okay, what case law supports that?
Yes.
And stuff like that. That really helped a lot.
Yeah, it kind of brings it to life.
Gets the wheels turning.
Yeah,
Correct.
and how does it apply? Because a lot of the times knowledge just kind of goes in one ear or orifice and out whatever orifice I guess we can choose. And then you're like, well, how did that apply to real life scenarios? What am I supposed to use that for?
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with the listeners and you guys, sending you guys home to read is an adult model that we use. You don't have to read everything in the classroom. That's our fundamental understanding of knowledge, because you can do it at home, you're adults. So do you think that was an effective strategy this week of, hey, let me go home and ingest some of this myself and then come back, let's talk about it, and let's apply it?
I think so.
Yes, it was very, very good, because some stuff didn't click for me, so I had to come and get a bigger explanation
Yeah.
from the instructor, telling me what it actually means.
Well, and if you don't mind, you don't have to, again, name or whatever, but do you expect that from an instructor, to be the expert, the subject matter expert, the go-to?
In a line of work like this where you could end up not going home, I would expect that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they have so much experience, so they know. Of course, they're going to know more than us, and I feel like with that experience, they understand more than we do. So.
And you don't feel, at least as a cadet right now, challenged by that or intimidated by that at all?
No, not necessarily.
No, I wouldn't say so. No.
Yeah, and even from my side of things, I think that I'm always learning in this job. there's never a moment where I'm not learning something new. So even today, you brought up a case, the Gans case. I had no idea that even existed. So obviously now I'm going to go back, read about it. I'm actually going to take that back to our PD so I can show the other patrol guys, like, hey, like, we need to know this. Because with us being out there in the field, all these Supreme Court cases, we have to follow those cases. Otherwise, we're gonna get sued. The department's gonna get sued, and then that's gonna be putting us in a position where we don't want to be put in.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We spend a fair bit of time trying to be precise, and it's not for acquisitive knowledge or to be right or to showboat. It's just so that way you can get in an academic environment something you can take back and be practical. And yeah, something as easy as Gantt, which kind of creates a simple rule. But then it's like, what have I been taught dogmatically? And was that really the most effective way to do that? That's what we think about, at least for our line of work. And I appreciate you guys answering about a subject matter expert. We actually feel the same. For the listeners out there that have tuned in, we have a whole episode actually where we talk about just teaching from the board, teaching it so that way it's visual, it's connected, and not just on a fleeting PowerPoint.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Correct.
Was it hard to follow this week, kind of that board work at all?
No, because you made it pretty entertaining. You threw examples out there and let us know what you were going to go over and how it applies to the real life stuff. So it wasn't really that hard.
I appreciate
I
it.
agree.
Yeah, we had some of your classmates made some naughty pictures on the board, so we had to erase it and start over. That's pretty typical in law enforcement education, I think.
Right.
Good artists.
Yeah.
Bad students. No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing. So if you wouldn't mind, we've got probably 10, 15 minutes left. Can we talk a little bit about this week's training? And I've already asked you guys after class kind of what your favorite parts were, what we would change, just so that way there's a little transparency across. I mean, do you guys want to revisit that now that you have time to think? Of course, you didn't want to be rude in class, or I'm not looking for too much dessert, but what was the most effective part of this week? I feel like there's a scenario coming again, but
Yeah.
But what was that most effective part, if you don't mind?
Going to repeat here, like you said, scenarios. I mean,
Okay.
that really helped. I mean, I'm sure it helped everyone in the class as well. I mean, just like being in the real life scenario of what could happen and the way we could de-escalate a situation or something. And, just like separating parties and stuff like that, and calming everyone down.
Yeah.
And just talking to them, and that's the way you got to do it out there. You can't go in yelling at them, tell them, sit down, listen to me, you just need to be polite. And
Yeah.
just,
It seemed like, Marshall, you're, especially once you got comfortable with the law side, then going into the call, you had this assertive sort of command presence, but also very confident and calm.
Yes, sir.
Did that happen after you sort of started grasping and chewing on some of these concepts we were learning over the
Oh,
week?
yes, sir. Yeah, it helped me, build my confidence a lot
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
I was going in kind of like, nervous, not knowing what to do. But then, we did our first scenario, and I felt comfortable with the way I approached someone, stuff
Yeah.
like that.
And I remember you pointing out when we did a repeat of the same scenario, the time of the interaction cut down because the confidence was getting built and it was just a lot more easier to grasp at that point because you've already done it.
Yeah, because, a lot of what we do is pretty redundant.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the same calls. The same circumstances might appear. And I can't help but think, Officer Steiner, that in our academy, if we could have just repeated some of those scenarios over again, albeit it doesn't cover the crazy stuff,
Yeah, no, it definitely doesn't.
but it might be we just call it a foundation of scenarios. It's going to be an episode we put up in that we actually, when we train, especially in law enforcement academy training, we just set a core 5 scenario types, and then add concepts, take concepts away, and so it's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Do you sort of wish you could have had that same?
I think so, yeah. And again, I'm not talking bad about my academy.
Of course
I had a
not.
love-hate
No.
relationship with it, which I'm sure most officers did. There were fun parts of it, and then there were other not-so-fun parts. But, yeah, I think the main thing especially now that I've been out for a while, I say a while, but it's only been a few years, is, just gaining that confidence. Being like, okay, like, this is a scenario, this is a call I'm going to go on. If I do it right, and the instructors tell me, hey, like, you did a really good job, it's like, okay, like, I know how to handle that. Whereas, if you just get thrown in and you're kind of sitting there like deer in the headlights look, it's like, oh crap, like, what do I do? And the instructors are like, I'm not going to guide you. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. Say, you take that out into the real world, you're going to freeze up. And in our line of work, we cannot afford to freeze up. We got to make decisions. We take people's liberties away.
Yeah.
And actually having that authoritative power, it can be scary for rookie officers, I'll admit.
Yeah.
But actually, just gaining that confidence and knowing that, hey, I can do this job, I think it does tremendous wonders for new officers that are coming into this field.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. I felt the same way. My poor wife, when I would come home, my vest would reek of sweat because, and that wasn't just because it was hot in Texas. That was just nerves pouring out of my back.
Yeah.
And I tried to play it off, but there was no hiding it for many reasons, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So some other things. So y'all have been using some of our resources, books and things of that nature. Have they been helpful to y'all?
They've been very helpful. I remember before we did the I think it was our first or second comp exam, it had a lot of penal code questions, and I used your element study guide to help me on that a lot, and it really came in handy.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I enjoyed the arrest, search, and seizure one that you gave us today. It basically broke everything down and summarized it instead of reading from the IRG that we got of long things that, you took out the important information and put it all in a book that really helped with the concept of things.
Yeah, so we've talked kind of about models of learning, both, from the PowerPoint, from the board, and they may seem like stark differences. I don't know that they're that different per se, but with the methodology from this week and the resources in mind, do y'all dare to or care to compare that to, let's say, a more of a traditional lecture model? And maybe do you dare to give us opinion about how effective each one could be? You don't have to, but that's definitely something we think about.
Not really. I mean, like I said, those are really helpful, and I think every academy should at least have access to it. I mean,
Checks in the mail.
oh, yeah, and I mean it's like I said, it's just the important stuff. All the other stuff that you don't need is thrown out of your book, so it gets down to the straight basics of what you need.
Breaks it down bit by bit so you can digest it a little easier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to teach you learning objectives, right? But
Correct.
you're adults. There's got to be a little bit of adult responsibility in the classroom, which oftentimes, in my opinion, this is Walt talking, sometimes it feels like in traditional lecture methods, if you want to add Officer Steiner, it feels like I'm sort of not added into that. 3 of our core principles, autonomy, relevance, and practical application. It's what we teach from. Giving an adult a say-so in the training environment, but also that reciprocity of, hey, come to class ready to talk about stuff, and relevant, like, why do I need to know this? And then this practical application, which we did all week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, do you have an opinion on that comparison? Officer Steiner, again, not talking about our academies, 'cause
Yeah.
I have the same way. We had one very, very traditional method in my academy. It wasn't bad per se, but it required me to do a lot of work outside of our academy after passing.
Yeah, and that was my academy too. I had to do a ton of work on my own just to understand, like, this is what I need to know. There are benefits, at least from my perspective, for the traditional lectures, because and then doing the actual practical stuff. And I've noticed this too. There's different learning styles. Some people learn better in a lecture setting. Some people learn better in a practical setting. I know for me, I learn better in a practical setting because it's like, okay, like, I'm actually going to go out and do this, and now I have a general idea of, like, okay, this is how I need to act, so that way I can handle what I need to do. Like I said, there's costs and benefits to both, but for me personally, I think actually doing the practical stuff is a lot better than just sitting down and listening to someone talk.
Yeah, I agree with you. I appreciate it. Those were tough questions, and you're like, hey, man, we got quizzes and stuff coming up. Why are you asking me tough questions? Let's do something maybe a little easier with a little bit of time we got left. Is there something about law enforcement training that gives you hope? Like maybe a trend with a prospective agency, or maybe you see the quality of training starting to kind of rise? I mean, whatever it is there something that gives you hope about that?
I like seeing agencies push training. I think it's really important. There's never enough training, in my opinion, honestly, because this job is ever changing and nothing's ever going to stay the same. There's multiple perspectives and ways to do things.
Yeah.
And just being to hear as many people's insights and perspectives on it will benefit me in the long run, I think.
Yeah, you made a really good point there. I mean, like you said, you can always have more training. You can always do better, and always, be better outside in the field with more training. So
Yeah.
you made a really good point there.
Yeah. And I mean, Officer Steiner, you said few years, but have you even seen the push for more training? I mean, when I started, I think training budgets were rather low.
Yeah. I've seen the push for a lot more training. Just coming from an opposite side of the country, coming down here to Texas, there's a lot more emphasis on training here in Texas than in Ohio. And again, not talking bad about Ohio or anything like that.
No, not at all.
I've seen the trend that this job is ever changing, and people. I'll be honest, people are scared to do this job. They're scared to be like, oh well, if I get into this, I could go to jail. I don't want to go to jail. I'm a 21-year-old kid, and I still have my whole life ahead of me.
Yeah.
I do see the benefit of actually having more training and having good, solid training. That has been something I've seen in the last few years, is that there's this push towards having better training. We're not, forcing people, we're not rushing training. It's like if we don't meet some aspects of the training, that's okay. We can go and we can have another day if needed to actually address these concepts. It's not we're kind of like having that funnel of like we're pushing people out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the training that's been going on is very beneficial, and it's going to help officers do the job well and do the job confidently, so that that way they can represent their departments well, they can represent themselves well, and that they can go home at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate that perspective mightily. We have a lot of mandated training. That's just a fact. Not to say it's good or bad, but a lot of the times what we hear from other people is this, we call it check the box training, but it's mandatory training that it can have really great instructors and really great outcomes, but sometimes we hear that it doesn't. Do you think that if we incorporated more blended styles, multimodal styles, like some of the mandatory training that perhaps has been more lecture based, if we could just do a blend of multi modes, y'all feel like it would make it more tenable or effective? Yeah.
Oh,
I
for
think so.
sure. Yeah. I mean, like you said, a lot of people don't learn from someone just reading off a PowerPoint or something. So if they, got their hands on with stuff, I mean, it'd probably be more effective to them knowing what could happen in the, real life. So, yeah, I think that'd be a
I also
great.
think it would build more interest in learning more in the future for young officers.
Mm-hmm.
There's always more foundation to lay.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like adults, if you go to one bad experience, it makes it bad. At least you have to overcome the fact that, oh, crud, I have to go back to this training again.
Right.
Correct.
Or whatever. And, yeah, I think we have wonderful instructors in Texas. I really do. Some amazing men and women that fill the ranks of law enforcement. I do think that we're unique. I mean, a lot of the officers that come in and teach, even you guys, they work ancillary to their duties as police officers, so they're having to kind of burn the candle at both ends. So my hope is not just for, I guess this is maybe my selfish answer to that question, but is to maybe push for not only more training, quality training, blended styles, but also give officers time to train how to be a trainer. And that's what Mike and I are trying to do at PoliceTrainingHQ. We're trying to not only just go teach the things that we like. I'll always be a nerd. Hey, don't laugh at that. I'll always be I'll always be the officer that loves this style of information, because it's what makes me happy. It gives me that dopamine rush. But yeah, that's my hope, at least. So I'm going to ask two questions. So what advice would you give for cadets that's going to follow you up? And what do you think their biggest challenges are?
I mean, definitely study. I mean, study the stuff that they give you because, you know, what they're giving you is definitely going to be on the test. They're not going to mess with you and be like, oh, you don't really need to know this. But it's really a thing that they need to do is study and not procrastinate. I mean, not wait till the last minute.
So don't procrastinate. We talk about small chunks every day. Do you think that would be helpful?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Also, I think don't be afraid to ask questions, even if you feel like you're going to sound dumb. There's so many perspectives out there that you can learn from and add that to your regiment of training and knowledge. I think it'd be very helpful.
Yeah.
Going back to what you said about asking questions, you know, I learned this from day one from Mr. Jackson. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So,
Yeah.
Especially in a job, this is obviously not the safest job in the world.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. And what do you see as their challenges moving forward? Maybe even a year or two, as I know the curriculum's probably going to get a little wider. Maybe a few more concepts to have to learn.
yeah.
I think one of the biggest challenges is probably recruitment because of the scrutiny and the magnifying glass that we're going to be under.
Do you have an opinion about maybe making somebody feel better about that? Or do you just say, hey, if it's a calling, do it?
Do it, yeah.
If it's a calling, do it for sure. That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you have any advice, Officer Steiner?
Yeah, so the advice I would give, especially to, you know, rookie officers or cadets, even cadets, really is, yes, we're dicks as police officers. We are. I experienced that in my first year, and one thing that I was told is, you know, if someone's not making fun of you, they don't like you. And that's kind of how I kind of figured out my.
Are you sure you weren't a firefighter in your previous?
No, I wasn't a hose dragger. Not knocking them.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a rookie, and you know, I experienced this myself. Is, you know, you're not going to know it all, and that's okay. You know, you might get made fun of, but you'll find those officers that actually want to help you, and that are like, hey, like, listen, you're going to make mistakes. It's okay. We've all been there. You learn from those mistakes. And that's how you get better, and that's how you gain the confidence to do this job. For cadets, the advice I would give them is, make sure you study. Studying is going to help you tremendously for the state test, and even in life in general. Can
I break into that statement?
Not
to interrupt you, I apologize, but how about maybe an addition to FTO as well? Mm-hmm. If you don't mind, sort of a nexus.
Yeah, and actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I'm actually an FTO as well for our department. I haven't trained my first cadet yet, but I'm excited for it. And when I have my trainee, I'm going to tell them all right off the bat, like, hey, you're going to make mistakes. It's okay. I'm here to guide you. I'm not here to bash you. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here so that you have the confidence to know how to do this job. My goal at the end of the day is that I get you home safe and I go home safe as well. That's one of my main goals that I want to instill in my training, is that I might be hard on some points because there are situations where if you mess up, it's going to be bad. But when those situations occur, so I'm not going to dog on you about it. Be like, hey, you messed up. What'd you learn? Okay, let's fix it the next time.
Right, that's awesome. That's good training methodology. Yeah, I mean that's sage advice. Because I didn't even know what FTO was, and I didn't know what to expect. Luckily for me, my first FTO, he was a great guy and taught me a lot. But we've had a mixed bag sometimes. I mean that's just a fact. So, any closing thoughts? Any classmates, instructors you want to shout out and say hey to, or?
I'll shout out Mr. Malcolm Jackson. I think he was an awesome instructor as well.
Yeah.
And you and him are definitely my favorite instructors we've had.
Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So I want to give a shout out to you, Mr. Bauer. Thank you for having me on this podcast, man. It opened up my eyes to a lot of things. And Malcolm Jackson, he was really good. He knows a lot. So.
Well, I'm going to make sure I tell him that too. I appreciate it.
Yes,
I appreciate
sir.
this week, y'all's effort, the buy-in to the kind of mad scientist way that we look into things. And just thank you for all of your kind words. It means a lot.
It was our pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so, last question: what are you gonna do first thing after graduation? And you can't say get drunk.
First thing I plan on doing, my grandpa's actually coming down from Oregon to watch me graduate, and then we're going to go to Post, which is his hometown, and he's going to show me around and see what family we still have up there.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to celebrate with my family, and then I plan on actually going straight to work, man. Straight to work.
Oh, nice,
Yeah.
nice. So the long trip back to Waller.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Awesome.
sir. 8 hours.
That's awesome. Well, thank you guys for being on.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. And for everybody else, stay safe, train hard.